Imagine your container home 10 years from today. It looks perfect. The paint is holding up. The foundation is solid. It feels like the indestructible fortress you poured your life savings into building. But then you notice something. A faint, musty smell in one corner that you can't get rid of. A floorboard near a window feels soft. You decide to open up a small section of the interior wall, expecting a simple fix. And that's when you see it. The wood framing behind your drywall is black and crumbling to the touch. The insulation is a disgusting, toxic sponge, saturated with mold. And the steel, the very steel you thought was invincible, is flaking away, eaten by corrosion that started from the inside. The enemy wasn't the surface rust you could see and treat. The real killer was a slow, invisible leak. A microscopic failure in a single seal around a window or door that for a decade allowed water, molecule by molecule, to seep into the wall cavity where it became trapped. It's an invisible cancer that silently eats the core of your home. By the time you find it, the diagnosis is terminal. This is the 10-year death trap, the single most common reason a container home fails catastrophically. And it all starts with one fatal mistake made on day one.
Every beginner worries about the rust they can see. They obsess over sanding down a surface spot, priming it, and covering it with industrial paint. And they should. But that kind of rust is the enemy you know. It's on the surface. You can fight it, manage it, and win. The killer we're talking about is far more sophisticated. It isn't a frontal assault. It's a stealth infiltration. It happens at every single point where you cut a hole in your container's original steel envelope. Every window, every door, every vent, every pipe, and every screw you drive through the steel is a potential point of failure. Here's the physics of the trap you create. When you build your interior walls with studs and insulation, you create a sealed wall cavity. Once even a single drop of water falls past a failed exterior seal, it gets trapped in that cavity. It can't evaporate. It can't drain out. The steel skin that was designed to keep water out now becomes the very thing that keeps it in. This trapped moisture initiates a trifecta of destruction. First, it attacks the steel itself, corrosion from the inside out where you will never see it. Second, it soaks into your wooden framing, and constant dampness turns structural supports into rotten pulp. And third, it transforms your expensive insulation into a disgusting, toxic breeding ground for black mold, poisoning the air you breathe. This is why a micro-infiltration is so lethal. A big, obvious leak gets fixed, but a tiny, weeping seal goes unnoticed for years, silently feeding the destruction behind your walls. By the time the symptoms appear, you're not patching a leak, you're facing a catastrophic structural failure. So, how does this catastrophic failure begin? It begins with an act that feels responsible and professional. Faced with sealing a new window or door, the amateur builder does what they've always done. They go to the hardware store and grab a familiar tube of all-purpose silicone caulk. They apply a neat, clean bead. It looks waterproof. It feels secure. For the first year, maybe even two, it is. And this is the trap. This is the false security. What the amateur doesn't understand is that this common household sealant is a ticking time bomb, and the sun is holding the detonator. Standard silicone is not engineered to survive years of direct UV radiation. The sun's rays relentlessly attack its chemical structure, breaking it down, making it hard and brittle, like a rubber band left out in the weather. Now, combine this with the second force of nature, thermal movement. A giant steel box expands in the summer heat and contracts in the winter cold. This movement is subtle, but it is immensely powerful. The seal around your window is in a constant battle, being stretched and compressed thousands of times. The brittle, sun-damaged silicone simply cannot handle the stress. It develops microscopic cracks, it loses its bond, and pulls away from the painted steel, creating invisible gaps. The very tool the amateur used to protect their home becomes the point of failure that guarantees its slow death. They aren't creating a permanent seal, they are setting a timer for the failure of their entire wall system.
This brings us to the #1 rule for building a container home that will outlive you. You do not create a seal. You build a system. A professional doesn't think like a caulker. They think like a submarine engineer. On a submarine, a single microscopic leak is a catastrophic failure. You would never trust one bead of sealant to hold back the pressure of the ocean, so why would you trust it to protect your home from a decade of relentless rain, snow, and ice? The professional obsession is with creating a multi-layered waterproofing envelope. This is a system where each component is designed to do a specific job, and they work together to create redundant layers of protection. The fundamental principle is this: assume the outer seal will eventually fail. The goal of the system isn't just to block water, it's to actively manage it. It's designed to catch any water that gets past the first line of defense and channel it safely away from the wall cavity, ensuring it never touches the steel, the wood, or the insulation. This isn't a minor tweak in technique, it's a complete change in philosophy. You are moving away from the amateur's hope in a single bead of caulk and embracing the professional's certainty in an engineered, multi-layered system. It's the difference between patching a hole and building a fortress.
So, how does the professional system work? It relies on two key industrial-grade components: metal flashing and butyl tape. First, let's talk about butyl tape. This isn't caulk, it's a synthetic rubber sealant that is fundamentally different from silicone. Its primary advantage is that it never fully hardens or cures. Butyl tape remains permanently flexible and tacky, allowing it to move with the thermal expansion and contraction of the steel without breaking its bond. Unlike silicone, which is broken down by UV rays, high-performance butyl tape is engineered to resist weathering and extreme temperatures, making it a permanent one-time solution. It creates a gasket, an airtight and watertight membrane that fuses to the steel. But the tape is only the first layer. The second, and arguably more important component, is the metal flashing. This is the mechanical genius of the system. Flashing is a thin piece of metal, usually steel or aluminum, that is custom bent and installed around the opening before the window or door even goes in. Here's how they work together in a multi-layered defense. The system is built in layers, always starting from the bottom and working up, like shingles on a roof. A piece of flashing is installed along the sill, or bottom of the opening, creating a waterproof pan. High-performance butyl tape is applied to the mounting flange of the window or door, creating that primary gasket seal against the container's steel wall. After the unit is installed, flashing is then installed on the sides, and finally at the top. Crucially, each piece of flashing overlaps the one below it. The head flashing at the very top is the most critical piece, acting like a small awning that directs the vast majority of rainwater away from the opening altogether. This system is engineered for failure. If even a drop of water gets past the outer flashing, it hits the butyl tape seal. And, in the unlikely event that water finds a way past both, the underlying sill flashing is there as a final line of defense, catching the water and directing it safely back outside. This is what separates a patch from a truly permanent engineered seal.
In the end, the fatal mistake that destroys a container home is subtle. It isn't a dramatic structural collapse or a raging fire. It's a slow, quiet death caused by water. The amateur sees a tube of silicone as a solution, creating a ticking time bomb that will inevitably fail under the assault of sun and thermal movement. They inadvertently create the perfect environment for the invisible cancer of internal corrosion, rot, and toxic mold to consume their home from the inside out. The professional, however, understands that a steel box is only a starting point. The number one rule of building a multi-layered waterproofing envelope, using the uncompromising engineering of butyl tape and mechanical flashing, is what truly transforms that box into a fortress. It's the obsessive attention to this detail that ensures every cut, every window, and every door is an asset, not a liability. By rejecting the false security of a simple patch and embracing a system designed for permanent, redundant protection, you defeat the invisible killer before it can ever take hold. You don't just build a house that looks good on day one. You build a home engineered to stand for a lifetime. If this one critical rule for creating a permanent, watertight seal has saved your project from a slow death, show your support with a like and subscribe for more essential guides from the Builder's Rulebook. For the professional-grade flashing, butyl tapes, and tools we trust for every build, you can find our curated lists by pointing your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen now, or by using the link in the description. Now, we want to hear from you. We've tackled the structural floor and the critical waterproofing envelope. What is the next fatal mistake you want to see us break down? Let us know in the comments below.